Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about 3 ways to respond when your husband wants a divorce. My guest, Marie, was already distressed about her husband's drinking, gambling, and staying out late, sometimes staying out all night. But she was devastated when she was contacted by another woman. Marie turned that crisis in her marriage into an opportunity when she decided to start trusting her husband. What? She stopped complaining about him staying out so late, and he started coming home earlier. Today, she says her relationship is transforming, and she uses the 6 intimacy skills in all her relationships as part of her vision for creating a loving family. She's going to describe what she does so you can transform your relationship and your whole family too. The Worst Advice of the Week award goes to a catchy slogan about how to avoid a war with yourself, but it will only make a big conflict at home. That's coming up. But first, I want to share the 3 ways to respond when your husband wants a divorce. When he starts throwing around the D word out of the blue, it's a serious punch to the gut. Why did he promise to love you till death do us part if he was just going to change his mind, right? The hurt and shock is overwhelming. And you might wonder, is there really still any hope? Or should you just start figuring out how to divide the assets and lawyer up? Especially if he sounds serious about wanting a divorce and says he's not going to change his mind. What if that's not what you want at all? Then what should you do? Well, here are 3 ways to respond that will help restore your hope and soothe your anxiety and heal your marriage. Number 1, freak out, but not at him. As a mere mortal woman, you're bound to feel pretty emotional about this change of heart from the man you married. So, of course, there's going to be some anger, maybe cursing, and definitely tears. Who wouldn't fall apart at a time like this? That's legit. You're going through something scary and awful, and those feelings deserve their day in the sun. But your husband doesn't need to be the one to witness them. For that, you can get someone who's neutral to bear witness to what you're experiencing, like your mom or your friends or a group of women who are standing for your greatness in the Ridiculously Happy Wife program. I know you may feel that he deserves to see how much he's hurt you and for him to hurt too. That's just human. But it's not him I'm worried about. It's you. Because it just doesn't feel good to unload on someone else when you're upset. I remember when I used to rage at my husband and what an awful hangover I'd get afterward, and how scared I felt that I was pushing him further away when what I really wanted was to feel reassured that I was indisputably loved. Freaking out and raging, it's not a good way to inspire reassurance, it turns out. And maybe since you're feeling threatened, you've already freaked out at him. That's okay. It's understandable. You're definitely not the only one who's done that. It does not mean that everything is ruined. I'm just inviting you to consider finding an alternate audience for your upset so that you can restore your dignity and begin to create the emotional safety that's going to go a long way to helping you fix your marriage. If you're like I was and you don't feel like you can control your urge to rage or cry at him, then this next step is going to be life-changing. This is how I cured my rageaholism and regained a sense of choice about how I show up in any situation. Number 2, get super happy. You know that saying about how crisis and opportunity are 2 sides of the same coin? Well, that's certainly my experience with my marriage crisis. It was an unexpected opportunity to learn how to be responsible for my own happiness because, well, I could see finally that my marriage depended on it. But the reason I had to learn that is because I had no idea how to do it. And I resisted this at first. I was insistent that I was just too busy and too broke to do anything just for fun. I was used to being miserable. And that felt safer in some ways. So I just clung to my misery like it was my security blanket. Sure, I was unhappy, but at least it was familiar. I was so uncomfortable with all the guilt and fear that came up when I tried to spend money on myself or if I left the house messy in favor of lounging on the patio. I had this free-floating terror that I would have to pay a price for being so indulgent, like being even more broke or feeling ashamed when people saw my messy house. But the cost of not making myself happy was also exorbitant. And when I identified it directly as a major cause of my failing marriage and my uncontrollable rage, it took on new importance, became a high priority for me to get happy. And once I realized that only happy people have happy marriages, the crisis in my marriage was an opportunity to make myself play volleyball or relax when I wanted to, just get extra rest, do retail therapy sometimes. Coach Kathy gave me a meme years ago that hung in my office for a while that said, "A terrible thing has happened. I've lost my will to suffer." But I didn't lose it so much as I wrestled it off my back by continually asking myself, how do I feel? And what do I want? And then listening for those answers and then acting accordingly, giving myself what I wanted. Feeling miserable may seem more appropriate than feeling happy when your husband is asking for a divorce, but one way to change the dance with your husband is to demonstrate that you've lost your will to suffer. Plus, just making yourself feel good, that's a win right there. Number 3, respect his thinking and share your desire. It stinks when your husband wants a divorce, and it seems unfair that he promised to love you forever and now he's changed his mind. But that also proves that he could change it back. So much will depend on your desire and your intentions and your commitment. One powerful way to communicate your intentions when he says he wants a divorce is to say, "I hear you, and I respect your thinking, and, not but, and I would love to stay married." If you've been an Empowered Wife podcast listener for a while, then you've already heard women share about this step as a part of their journey of making their marriage last and thrive when it was under the threat of divorce. It's such a powerful way to honor yourself when he says he wants a divorce. And the reason that I like the word and not but is because you're not dismissing or disagreeing with what he said. His thoughts are valid, and you would love to stay married. We hear story after story on the podcast of wives who were committed to their marriage, even when it was just hanging by a thread, which is not easy to do. When he's saying, "I don't want to be married to you anymore," that can shake you. That can make you feel hopeless. But in every success story we've heard, her commitment to making her marriage last was bigger than her fear of the illusion that her marriage was going to end and that she was helpless to stop it. So she breathes new life into the marriage with her faith and her intentions and her desire. When she respects his thinking by listening and just hearing his view as valid, even though divorce is not her most desired outcome, she's also being true to herself, which is attractive. It's a great way to honor her desires, which are the seat of feminine power. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest, Marie, was already distressed about her husband's drinking, gambling, and staying out late, sometimes staying out all night. But she was devastated when she was contacted by another woman. And she turned that crisis in her marriage into an opportunity when she decided to start trusting her husband. What? She stopped complaining about him staying out so late, and he started coming home earlier. Today, she says, her relationship is transforming, and she uses the 6 intimacy skills in all her relationships as part of her vision for creating a loving family. She's going to describe what she does so you can transform your relationship and your whole family too. Marie, welcome to the Empowered by Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm glad to tell my story.
Well, take us back to the beginning. What were things like in the bad old days?
Well, honestly, I think the bad old days started even before we got married. If we look at this, looking at ourselves. But while married, the bad old days began maybe 13 years ago, for sure, for real. There was a lot of control in the relationship. And when I say control, I mean me doing a lot of the controlling. So essentially, I was emasculating him. I realize that now, looking back, it's like, oh, what did I do? This poor guy. And what is he going to do? When you push something down, it pops out the sides. And so I feel like that really happened in our relationship. And so control, I was critical a lot and didn't feel good about myself. And it was hard to see his love. So when I finally did come to the 6 intimacy skills here with you, Laura, it was pretty incredible. I realized all the things how I failed, and I went, oh my gosh, I got to quit pointing the finger at him. So if I go back a little bit, we had tried Retrovai, and that was maybe about 5 years ago. And I still had a hard time trusting and letting go. A lot of the times, like if he was going to be out late, he would, standard time for him being home was 6 o'clock, so we could sit down and have dinner together. And that wasn't happening. And I would complain about it. I would tell him, you at least call me and let me know. But even calling me was difficult. If he was going to call me and tell me he was going to be late, he was going to get an earful from me. So it wasn't even pleasant letting me know what was going to happen. And so eventually he was out in the community, and there was somebody else that said, I like you. And he went, oh, I like you back. Wow, great. And eventually she got upset with him, and she contacted me and said, you've got to know what your husband's doing. And I went, I kind of figured, okay, thank you, God, for this sign. Now let's see what we can do. And at that point, then I ended up filing for divorce about 6 months after that, because things just weren't changing. We did end up reconciling about 6 months after that. So then after that, it was just kind of like, okay, he's burying me and I'm burying him. And we have 4 kids, and neither of us want a divorce. We don't want to go that way. Well, I guess we're just going to have to, suck it up and do the best we can. And there were points, it would be like waves where we'd have good times and then it would just crash again in waves. But during this whole entire time, though, I didn't have any skills to rely on other than just, the panic mode and all the emotions of, oh my gosh, what's he doing? Oh my gosh, he's late. He said he was going to call. And this critical attitude didn't just spill over to my husband, and this being in this constant emotional turmoil affected everything. It affected all aspects of my life. I was consumed with thoughts about what he was doing, who he was with, are there others? And instead of living my own life, I was constantly looking over to see what he was doing.
So your life is kind of going by without anybody paying attention to it.
Yeah, exactly. And when I'm being critical of him, I'm also being critical of children. That being in a stress mode, can't handle a lot. And so what would happen is I would yell at the kids. And I finally went, oh, okay, wait a minute. I don't want my kids to grow up with a mother like this. I need to change me. And at that point, then I depended on some like Al-Anon skills and such. So I started attending Al-Anon meetings and S-Anon meetings as well. So I was getting double duty there. But the one thing that those meetings don't have is the 6 intimacy skills directly related to marriage. It does talk a lot about staying focused on yourself. But like the self-care really wasn't pushed. And in all honesty, I really, 3 was the bare minimum for me. I had to stay, if I was in a crisis situation, I needed more than 3.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, right now at this point, I have to do still, even right now, I still need to do more than 3. And so I have taken time, and I do it with my kids too. I will make activities for my kids to enjoy and get out as well. What has happened since it has been a cascade and a whirlwind of me changing Marie, and it's been phenomenal. The very first thing that I did was, let's go back a little further. My friend introduced me to Laura Doyle. She said, "Oh, she's got these podcasts, and you need to listen to these things." And okay, great. So I started listening. Oh, wow! I can relate to these. I can relate to these stories, and I wanted to listen to more. I think it took me maybe 2 weeks. It was over 100 podcasts at that point.
Oh my gosh.
I think it took me 2 weeks to get through because I mean, I had them in my ears. It was like the only thing I was listening to.
Wow.
Anyway, so yeah, so September 2021 is when I found the skills, and all she did was say that one line. Yeah, I've been listening to Laura Doyle podcast, and it's been such a great impact on my life. That was all she said. There was nothing else, and that's all I needed because I mean, I'm like, here, pass me this, pass me that. I'll take it. Let me try this. Let me try that. So I've always considered life to be a laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And I've always considered, well, if it doesn't work, you can try something different. And so I've been trying the skills and they've been working. And anything I would have done in the past, I go to the group and I say, this is what I would have done. And I want to do it, but I know the results are going to get me the same old stuff as I had before. So I'm not going to do this. And I don't. And then I find there's either suggestions or recommendations for some self-care or different things that can apply to me and how can I change myself. And it's been amazing. It's been phenomenal.
Wow. So not that we glossed over, but I just want to acknowledge this has been tremendous heartbreak. Nearly divorced. I mean, to get to that point, I just remember how painful it was. And then, hearing from that other woman, it must have been a pretty bad day.
Yes.
And then suspecting there are others or knowing there are others. And yet your accountability, Marie, is extraordinary. You're like, I realized I wanted to change me. Like, wasn't there a part where you were like, okay, he's the bad guy and he's the one that stayed out all night and he's the one that cheated and he's got to change?
Yeah, that part. Yes. It's true. And sometimes, I mean, I could go there. Shoot, we want to start commiserating about, I could go there, but it's not going to help me. I did that. I actually did a lot of talking to other people, and I talked to too many people. And I actually made an apology to him. I said, I realized how awful I was to talk to anybody and everybody that I could, whoever was listening, just to help figure out what to do. And frequently the question is, well, why are you still with him? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. Well, the answer is I loved him. I didn't want to admit it. I wanted to be hurt. I wanted to play the victim. Woe is me. He needs to change. I'm perfect. No, I'm not. Like I haven't done anything wrong. Well, yeah, I to stand up and say, I did a lot of things wrong. And I used to think that a cheater, I'm not going to stay with the cheater. Well, I have 4 kids. I want to grow up in a household with 2 parents. Whether he's present or not all the time, or as much as he chooses to be, is up to him. One is already grown. and has gone through a lot of the turmoil. And there's a lot of trauma that she has to work through eventually on her own. She's going to have to figure that out. I mean, I'm do the best I can to help her, but she's going to have to, it can actually make her stronger, and it can make her more available for other people. But anyway, so yeah, for me, I really was on his I was on his paper. I was looking at what he was doing constantly.
You prefer not to go there anymore.
I really, well, I still can shop for pain, to be honest. I mean, but I know, paying attention to that, I know that if I'm not keeping up with my self-care, if I haven't done enough gratitudes, being thankful for what I have in my life, then I can go there very easily. So it's a matter of changing my habits and changing what I do. And there's some stories that really have helped me along the way. There's some stories that talked about, that have really propelled me, like, you know what? I can see that this is going to take time. I can see that all the damage, if I change myself, he's going to respond to that. And he has. And I just have to keep going in the same direction. And I've given myself time. I've given myself time to make mistakes. I mean, I'll come to group, I'll say, well, I'm in that, I'm in this emotional turmoil, and I need to get out. And I'm like, okay. And then half an hour later, I'm like posting update. I'm out of that now. I'm out of my emotional turmoil now. And how do I do it? Well, I focused on myself. I focused on doing something physical or something mental that required all of my hands-on mental capacities, and that really helps. I was driving. I took my kids on a weekend, and it wasn't a weekend. It was actually on one overnight to a water park, and it's the first time I've gone with the kids by myself to a place like that. We booked it, and the kids had a blast. I had a blast. On my way there, I was driving up, and I went, okay, here comes this emotional. I can feel it. I'm right on the edge. What do I need to do? Okay. Oh, I'm going to count colors. Okay. I count 5. Okay. Here we go. So I started looking at colors along the trip, and just something to keep my mind busy and focused on something other than where I would used to go. So I couldn't necessarily do something physical because I was driving, right. But it was that, looking at, I'm finding, how many orange things can I find? And lo and behold, would you believe it? I was looking at all kinds of orange things. Like, where'd those things come from? Holy cow. And I'm like, well, let's try this again. Blue. And all of a sudden, all these blue things were coming at me. Oh my goodness. I'm driving down the road, and you can just go mindless. You can habit, you can drive from one place, from point A to point B, and you can have no recall of what happened on the trip, right? Because habit, yes. Life is so much habit. Well, going to that place, going to that edge of despair or edge of emotional turmoil is a habit. And I firmly believe that all things, all skills are learnable. And if I learned how to go to the edge of net, or even fall into the emotional turmoil, the edge of this turmoil, and fall in, then I can also, I can also fall out. I can pull myself back out. And so because I've heard people talk about what they do, and because I've seen results of staying out of it, and I'm deliriously happy when I'm outside of that. My kids get a different mom, and that by itself is worth its weight in gold. I've learned to step back. What do I want? How do I feel? And those questions help me in a moment. Sometimes I want to look at his paper and what he's doing and say, well, I want him to wait. That involves somebody else. I can't go there. I need to turn around and refocus. What can I do for myself? What do I want? How do I feel? Well, I want to hug. Well, is there something else you can do? I can dry brush. Oh, great. So I'll I'll take a brush, and I'll dry brush and get my lymph system moving, and it requires my attention, and soon, and boom, just like that. I'm not thinking about what I was thinking about before. I have something I'm doing for myself. So yeah, those are some things that keep me going.
Yeah. I love how you break it down into a skill that you can learn and it's a new habit you're
Yeah.
developing. And it can be looking at colors, it can be dry brushing, but it's really what can Marie do for
Yeah.
Marie?
Yeah.
And I was interested to hear. So you did apologize to him, which it takes enormous humility and accountability
Yes.
to apologize, especially when you're the one that was cheated on, right? I think
Yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
takes a lot of getting to. How did he respond to that?
I love this story. Oh my gosh. I just absolutely love telling this part. So yeah. All right. I all of a sudden I just realized it dawned on me. And this was a spontaneous apology. And he was sitting outside on the deck. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So I went out and I said, I just want to let you know, uh, I apologize for all my behavior and all the things that I did, the criticism, the control. I apologize to you for all of those things. And then I didn't have anything else to say. And I turned around and went back inside the house. And I had somewhere to go. So I got in the car and I drove and I had an event to go to. So called me like 2 hours later and he asked me, did you want me to apologize too? No, I didn't. I was no expectations.
You
There was no
didn't. You really
expectations.
didn't have an
No,
expectation.
none. And it was. He said, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you." That was it. And I went, oh, this really works because it told me that he had been thinking about what I was saying.
Yeah.
Now he's still. I got um October. We went to an event and then we hung out afterwards with some other people and we had some alcohol. We went to a couple different bars. We went bar hopping. I had some more alcohol. And beer before liquor, you've never been sicker. And that was me. That was me.
Oh,
I got really sick. And while I was inebriated, while I was not at my best, I I gave him a State of the Union. I gave him an earful, and it was just really, I just was crying, and then it was like I needed to clean my slate, and then I was done. Well, that affected him immensely. I had told him I regretted marrying him,
oh,
and it really hurt him. And uh, yeah, that was in October. He took off his ring shortly after, the week after. He had been playing with it, and he's somebody. It's like he gives certain signals for certain things. And it's like, oh, I can see what's happening here. And sure enough, he took off his ring. Then he started staying out until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I know what I did. I did wrong. I really messed things up. I set our relationship back significantly with me doing that. It was once again those behaviors that came out, and so I said I can't respond in the same way. I have to show that I am significantly changed. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, he'd come home and I wouldn't say anything. I zipped my lip, not a peep out of me. I started waking up at 3:30, 4 o'clock when he was coming home. I couldn't go back to bed. And there were times where I would be awake when he would come home. And I'd be like, okay, I can't be in net. I can't be in needless emotional turmoil when he comes home. I got to keep busy with something. So I started doing laundry. I started singing songs. I started being grateful. I pulled myself out of this needless emotional turmoil at 3 o'clock in the morning.
wow.
I am in charge of myself. I need to take care of myself no matter what he's doing.
I'm impressed.
And well, I feel good about what I've done. I feel good, except that thing in October, which I totally lament. Oh, I totally lament doing that. So anyway, a couple, like maybe a month after, maybe 6 weeks after he started doing this, he's like, Marie, uh, you've really changed our relationship. I feel more relaxed coming home. I feel less stress. And I was like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing then. I'm going to And I still have moments where I get critical. I still have moments where I'm frustrated because the kids aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. But at the 2020 hindsight, I can look back at that moment and go, okay, I wasn't perfect in that moment. I forgive myself. I'm going to move on because I can't keep hanging on to these moments. Well, right now, my husband is in Mexico and he's visiting a family and he's got some cousins he's going to go to the beach with and such. I could go and I could sit and I could like try to figure out what he's doing, where he's at. Not that I haven't done some of that, but when he left, he started sending me messages and texts. So he sent me like 15 different messages. But before he left, I looked at him and I said, I really want to apologize for October. And I was very vulnerable. I was just like, I was crying. I was just in tears. And I wanted to make sure that was cleaned up before he left. And I think about it. I told him, I think about it every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't regret saying what I said to you. And he accepted it very graciously. Mm-hmm. And that was I think that was actually 2 days. That was Saturday. He left on a Sunday. Yeah, 2 days. So that Saturday night, he didn't come home again until 4:00 in the morning. And then he was up and he was sitting in the living room and he was crying. And I came to him and I didn't say anything. I didn't talk to him like, what's going on? You got to tell me everything. I sat back and I said, I need to stay on my side of the street here. And what he's willing to share is going to be what he wants to share. And he thanked me for being a safe place. Oh. He told me I was safe. Great. He held my hand and he looked at me and he said, you're such a safe person to be with. And I was like, oh my word. Okay. There's still more work that needs to be done. There's still more, I'm making my side magical though. I am making my side of the street beautiful. I have, when he went, he said, here, I have a bonus. I'm going to give you money so that you and the kids can have fun. And so we had a staycation while he went with his family. I have done things with the kids and I have done things for myself that I have never done before. I went on a helicopter ride. I saw it back maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I don't know. It was last year. And when we were in the middle of the pandemic, I was like, I wonder what it would be like to fly. I'd love to take flying lessons. And so I had looked up some stuff on the computer to see. And I'm like, well, later on, I can take a look. Well, that kind of planted a seed. And then I got an ad around Valentine's for a helicopter flight. And so I took a friend. I said, I want to go. I'm going to do this. And I took a friend and we went on this helicopter ride. And it was incredible. And I was just like, this is amazing. And I'm so glad I did this. And then the following day, yesterday I took the kids up to the water park and we had a great old time. It was snowing so hard on the way back. And I'm like, I got to get it back. I got to get back on time. And so we're here, we made it and everything's good. But I'm also realizing that me being able to hop out of the needless emotional turmoil quickly has also changed different aspects of my life in other areas too. Like coming back home, driving was pretty hairy. There were some really great places on the road, but there were some pretty rough places as well. My cortisol up, when you get a shock or your adrenaline is up really high, I noticed that it didn't stay up high. It came back down very quickly. So not only am I not staying in needless emotional turmoil in the emotional aspect, but my physical side is also reacting in the same way. There's a quicker recovery. And I thought that was a very interesting piece.
So good.
It does. It feels good to be normal and feel happy and feel at peace.
Yeah. And what about your kids? Because you mentioned that one of your motivators for really doing this work was to give your kids the kind of mom that you want to be.
Yeah.
So how is this impacting them?
Oh, wow. Well, since I was on other people's papers, my kids saw the example of being on other people's papers, on other people's territory and turf, and they're on each other's all the time. My 13-year-old doesn't like the term, you're on her paper. She's like, rah! Totally doesn't like it. She's just like, oh, mom, quit saying that. Well, that was probably, it took several months, but then she started recognizing when other people were on her side of the street, when they were looking at her or telling her or talking to her. And she actually, I helped her navigate a very difficult conversation with a friend who was getting too involved in an adult topic. I was talking about it with my daughter. And I, my daughter came to me and said, I need help with this. I don't know what to do. She was crying. She was in tears. And I said, you know what? You can say, I hear you. And she did. And it stopped the friend from continuing on. There was other pieces that she had said, and it kind of like fizzled out. It faded away. It wasn't an emotional. It didn't make my daughter an emotional wreck anymore. I said, she's not. You can recognize. You don't like it when I say it to you, but your friend is doing this to you, and she was able to see that. And let me tell you, the relationships in this household have really lightened. They can help each other. And I use a lot of self-fulfilling prophecies. And I really firmly believe anything we say to ourselves and to other people, we need to choose our words carefully so that we're not creating something that we don't want to create. That like an example, one of my kids really carries on and carries on. Young, they're little, immature, small people learning how to navigate big feelings. And, it's like, okay, well, let me help you out here. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. That helps. And, a big hug and like redirecting those thoughts, helping them to redirect, like, well, what's working for you? I know you can pull through this. You're meant to do hard things. And those things, I actually had my 8-year-old say, wow, mommy, you know what? I can do this. I was meant to do hard things. And so, yeah, I use SFPs, and I try to watch what I'm saying to myself. And I watch what I say to my kids more and more. So I don't get down on myself when I realize I've said something I could have been more stellar, but things are so different. And I'm just really glad, the skills, knowing the skills would have changed had I known about the skills, or these ways of being, my life would have been so different. My relationship with my husband could have been so different than what it was, because I was in such desire to be on his paper. So, what's going on here? But it wasn't just his paper, it was other people's papers too. So this is changing my relationship with my friends and changing my relationships with my parents. And like, yeah, this is some good stuff. Really good stuff.
That's cool. I really love how much of your story, like you're enormously accountable, Marie. So it's really fun to hear all this self-awareness and empowerment that I hear you having about all your relationships, the relationships with your kids, with your parents, with your friends. So, so tell us a little more about your marriage, though. What is it like now? I love this moment you described of him crying and you just bearing witness, really not giving him any lines of questions that made it unsafe, and him saying what a safe place you are, a safe woman you are to be married to. What else? What's it like around there between you and your husband?
Well, okay. So one of the things is, he likes to give money to friends, and he likes to give money to people who need it. And I started letting go of needing to help decide how much money to give or when. And he had a friend in Mexico. They make very little compared to what we make here. And his friend is trying to do a side hustle, but the side hustle makes more money than his job. And he wanted to help his friend. His friend had asked him for a loan. And he came to me and he said, I want to help support my friend. I don't want to give that much, but how much do you think we should give? I said, whatever you think. And I was like, ooh, I get to use this. And he looked at me and he's like, what, really? I said, yeah, no, I trust you. And he was like, it just like, these things blew him away. And I could see him reacting to me in a different way. And he ended up giving his friend a nice chunk of money, but not the sum his friend had asked for as a loan. And I am perfectly okay with that because he regulated. He had a certain amount of money he was willing to donate and give, and he just regulated it and gave some more to his friend and less to, he maneuvered it around. And I came to him. I said, I have a friend who she lost her husband, and she's got 5 kids, and he's like, give her money. And so I'm like, okay, how much? Give her this much, okay. And so I did, and he got a bonus, and the bonus paid off all of our credit cards that we've had for years and years and years. And we're sitting in a really good spot financially right now. And, the bonus was coming. So the bonus had been coming since the beginning of the year, but it's so funny that it's so timely that it came after I started working the skills. Like, there's something here. Anyway, I started being grateful for things. And then I never knew what to get. I didn't know what I wanted for Christmas, for birthdays, for anything. I didn't know what I wanted because I never paid attention to myself. I was always paying attention to other people. So I pulled myself in. And when I started that expressing desires, when I started expressing desires, I was like a kid in the candy store. I'm like, I'm going to express it all because I need practice here. So I'm like, I want that, and I want that, and I want that, and I want that. It didn't matter what it was, big or small. I was like, I want that. I want that. And by asking for so much, or just saying, that would be nice. That would be nice. That would be nice. Oh, I want flowers. Okay, well, I'm going to get myself flowers. And so I started buying flowers for myself on a regular basis. For Valentine's Day, he came home and he had tulips, which is one of my favorites. And he said, I don't know why I got these. We don't celebrate holidays like this. We don't celebrate Hallmark holidays. And I was like, oh, wow, thank you. Because I was treating myself to flowers. He knew that was a gift that was going to go over well. I will tell you that I used to reject gifts from him. And after I realized what I was doing, I just couldn't believe myself. I couldn't believe that was a feminine quality receiving. Why aren't I practicing this? And because he would give me beautiful and expensive Christmas presents. He gave me a Bulova watch one year. He gave me a pearl necklace, which is one of my favorites. He gave me other jewelry, and some of them are just like, that's questionable. I don't. It's too frilly, too fruitful. He really, when he tells you he loves you, he expresses it in a way that's fully 100% him, extravagant. And so I started accepting gifts. And at Christmas, he said, well, what do you want? I said, well, I would love. And I leaned up nice and close to his phone and I said, I would like a diamond pendant. I would like a diamond necklace for Christmas, because your phone hears you, right? And so I'm like, oh, you're going to start getting ads now. Well, let me tell you, I didn't get just one diamond necklace. I have the one that I'm wearing right now, which is on a gold chain. And it's a diamond pendant, and it has, it's got more than just a single diamond on it. He also gave me a bracelet with purple and white stones. He gave me a set as well. So I have, not only did I get the diamond necklace, but I also got a set with my favorite color stone in them, with earrings and a necklace and a bracelet. So he didn't just do one thing. He did multiple things. The other day, I learned in this whole process that I ask questions of other people. I have maybe a desire in my mind, maybe like I want to go see this movie, but I'll ask, what do you think about going to see this movie? Instead of stating my desires, which is what I do now. When I don't remember, if I go back to old habits, I can ask instead. But then I'm like, oh, how do I express this in a different way? How do I express this as my desire? And then how can I meet this desire if this isn't something that he's going to do? So the other day I said, I want to go to see this movie. I want to go see a movie. And he said, oh yeah, which one? And I said which one I wanted to go see. He went with me. He said, okay, let's go. Let's go at 8:30. So we went at 8:30 and we went to go see this movie. And then later on, another time I said something else and he's like, sure, let's go. And wow. So me relearning how to relate or express my desires has made me aware of what my desires are. What do I really want? I mean, I have a list. The other day when we had the expressing your desires workshop, I wrote down my list. I still have them. They're right here at like 10 to 15 desires. And I went through and I was like, I want to write consistently everything. And I looked at my list and I was like, I've already done a lot of these things already. Wait a minute, my list. Wow. And another thing is I've heard heart messages where before I only heard complaints.
Tell us about that.
Oh, I'd love to. So COVID affected my hips. Yeah, I like to eat cookies and no, my pants don't fit. Yeah. So what happened was I had gained some weight and I didn't feel good about myself and how my clothing was fitting. I don't like going shopping when I weigh more. And so he gave me money. He gave me this chunk of money. He said, go buy new clothes. And I'm like, I don't want to. I've gained too much weight. I don't like. So anyway, he knew all that. He's like, go buy some clothes. Like, okay, fine. I'll do it. And I'm like, I really need to feel fit. And he said, I know how good you feel when you feel healthy. Go hire a personal trainer. And I was like, no, I can do it myself. And I'm like, I'm not, first of all, two things. Number one, his heart message is he loves me. He wants me to feel fit. He likes it when I'm fit too. I like it when I'm fit and he likes it when I'm fit. And then the other thing is I was rejecting a gift. And I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this again. So I said, you know what? I'll take it. You offered, I'll take it. And it's been about 2 weeks now since I've started to work out. And I used to exercise a lot. I used to run. I used to do 10Ks. I used to do 5Ks. I used to play soccer. I was a former swimmer. So there's this activity level I used to have. And it's been really great working with this personal trainer. She uses self-fulfilling prophecies. She points to a muscle and points to a line and says, oh, I see your form coming back. It was like, I know what you're doing. Great. Keep it up. I love it. Awesome. Yeah. So it's been really great. So I've extended my expressing my desire muscle and he's heard it and he's seen it. And I don't get everything I want. Maybe I get 10%. It's actually higher now, but because I'm like more refined and defined and I do pay attention to my own needs now. And I realize what I need and what I want. And sometimes it's a coffee and sometimes it's an ice cream and sometimes it's a workout. So it really varies. It really varies. But I've also noticed that by being on my own paper and paying attention to my needs and my wants, I'm getting more stuff done.
Yeah.
I'm more creative.
You could have totally heard the get a personal trainer thing as an insult. Right?
Yeah, I did at first.
Oh, wrong.
Yeah.
You did it first. Okay.
And
then you heard a heart message like, oh, I've been saying I'm unhappy about this and he's trying to make me happy.
Exactly.
And that's where you went with it. So,
yes.
So beautiful. I love that. So, what about this? I mean, it sounds to me like a big pain point was this other woman and then not coming home at night. And it sounds like there's still challenges around that in your marriage.
Right? Yeah. Yes, there are some challenges and it's still a work in progress. But the breakthrough for me right now is, I have this thing, I have to give this time. I have to give myself time in this. And, I gave my husband, I spoke it out loud to him. I said, you have a moral compass. You know how to lead us as a family. And I trust you in that because he does. And when I made my apology for my behavior and what I did, and when I cleaned up my side of the street, he can't be blaming me anymore for his behavior. He has to come face to face. I've stepped out of the way.
Wow.
I am no longer standing between him and his reflection. He gets to see what he's doing, and he gets to decide what behaviors he takes. I'm going to give this time. I'm going to give it time, because there's still healing that needs to take place. And I have young kids, and he's a good father. He does things with the kids. He's more extravagant and gift giving than I am. And he's the fun guy. And I'm going to let him be the fun guy. I'm going to let him enjoy his family. And that's something else too, is that, I said, can I borrow your brain? Can I borrow, I need to talk through something. And I would love to hear what you have to say. So I'll set the scenario, and he'll help clear up a situation. And he's asked me again, like, well, can we give this money to our son to help him with opening a business? And I looked at him and I said, I'm really glad that you're interested in helping him do that. Whatever you think. And it's been freeing. It's been liberating. And it feels so good to be on my paper. I do notice that when I'm going over to his side and looking at what he's doing, and I get tired, I get exhausted, I get grumpy. And the more I'm on my side and looking at what my stuff and doing things for me, it's more obvious to me now than it was 6 months ago of, oh, you know what? I don't like being this way. I don't like being this former ornery person. I'm going to change it. And so I'm like, no, I got to do something different, and I need to do it now. Now, I've had a lot of coaching. I've had a lot of professional coaching, professional, emotional, business related coaching. We've had a lot. We've been in business for a long time. And so those skills, faster EFT is what I helped use to get out of a lot of emotional turmoil and pull myself up for a long time. And it works very well. It's one of the pieces I use for self-care. When I can't get out of something by distraction, I use faster EFT. And so it's been quite a journey. And I probably would have picked, based on who I was, I would have picked someone just like him, or I would have made somebody like him, because I would have pushed that person so hard. He really loves me. I mean, he has to really love me to have stuck around with that ornery person for so long, because I was nasty. I was hard to live with, hard to deal with. I thought I was a happy person, but I was really hard to deal with. And obviously so, because he would stay away. He wouldn't come home. He wouldn't be here. He looked for other places, other venues to be. And that's changing. That's really changing.
Mm. I love it. And so I especially love the part about you not standing between him and his reflection.
Yeah.
Like you complaining or criticizing or being upset at him was a distraction from his own moral compass, is what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's just all on his shoulders to decide what kind of man he wants to be. It sounds like
yes.
you got off of that. You got off of that train.
Yes.
So that is powerful. That's a really, and so what about when you're tempted to shop for pain now, when you're tempted to check up on, how did you used to shop for pain? Let me hear about that.
I would just dive right in. All right, this is going on. I was the world's greatest detective. Let me tell you, I could
online sleuth, phone sleuth, that kind of thing.
Yes. I could crack the code very well, very quickly. And I used to tell him, I saw you doing this, blah, blah, blah. I would give away I'd have give it away. And then he would shut that down. And I would like, oh, okay, he's learned because I told him. And then I began to become even more truthful. You're like, wow, can you talk about being on someone's page? I could do it in a heartbeat. I watch very carefully, and I will decide. I will mull things over now. Because shopping for pain is one of those things where if I'm on the edge of net, I have to get out of that or I will go there. And I've become so adept at getting out of the net that I don't shop for pain like I used to. So I'm not in needless emotional turmoil like I used to be. So I'm in a good spot most of the time. Now I might shop for pain occasionally, just like trying to figure out what's going on. And then like, okay, all right. Did I need to know that? Did I need to cause myself this pain? Did I need to now have to work myself out? Now I cannot unknow this. That's the thing. When you shop for pain, you cannot unknow what you have found. Do I need to know those things to have to overcome that additional thing?
Yeah.
How does it affect me and how I behave with myself, with my kids, with my friends? Do I want to focus on what he's doing and waste my life away? The answer is no, more so now than before, ever before. Now, do I still shop for pain? There are times where I will still do it. Yes, absolutely. And sometimes it falls in my lap. Yeah. Sometimes it just falls in my lap and I'm like, I did not look for this. I don't want to look at it. Oh, yes, I do. No, I don't. Okay, right. I'm done. I'm done. Okay, I'm done. Do I need to put myself through this trauma again? No, I do not. Okay, moving on. And I'll move on. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. So it sounds like you have more of a choice about the shopping for pain than did it used to feel kind of compulsory, like involuntary?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And it's more compulsory while being in the emotional turmoil. Yes. So that's why it's so important to get the self-care in and take care of myself. How do I feel and what do I want? And then move into I am who I am and I know who I am. I know it to my bones, how I can feel. And I choose happiness. I choose to look at the good because my husband has so many good qualities that I refused to look at before. I would be jealous over him giving money to people before. I would have been snarky to him for behavior, his, just why are you acting that way? And just really condescending. And that is all shifted and changed. And I can stay focused on me and like, oh, okay, that's he's doing what he's doing. He's who he is. And because I've got my own faults, I've got my own stuff I need to fix and take care of. I'm never going to be perfect because we just aren't, but it's progress, not perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So, and you mentioned at the beginning that your journey kind of started even before you got married, probably before you met your husband. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I was really surprised that I was constantly afraid of him leaving me or him not wanting to be with me. My behaviors, even before we got married, were the same as after. There was a control and it was a lot of control. And having to relinquish that was really hard. And I would frequently, how you can choose to be right or you can choose to be happy. I'm like, I want to be right. Yeah. I'm going to be happy if I'm right.
Yeah.
Like, I began to realize it was only recently in the last 6 months. It's like, no, you know what? I don't have to be right. I don't have to be right. Life is so much better. Life is so much better with that relationship and restoring intimacy. And I began to see it as a bar. You have control on one side and intimacy on the other. And so my journey, like I said, it began before we got married, which we've been married now. We met in the 90s, got married at the end of the 90s. And it was just more and more the same, more same stuff. I didn't value myself. I didn't know what I really wanted. And so by me looking back and seeing who I was even back then, I can go, okay. So this really is all about me. This isn't about who he was before we got married. He loved me even before we got married. He showed me the ring. He said, I got you the ring. I bought you a ring. 6 months before he gave it to me. I was like, wow. Oh my goodness. So my 20-something-year-old self was unsure about him, unsure about life, unsure about what I was going to do. It was never about him.
I just love that. It's so kind of empowering in a way to recognize that, because then that means this is what you brought to the party originally, and you can change that. You have the power to do that. You're a member of Ridiculously Happy Wife?
I started out that way. I actually, I'm like, no, I can do the book. I can do this myself. And then after the drunken State of the Union in October, I went, no, I need help.
Yeah.
So I joined Ridiculously Happy Wives in October. About a week after that, I asked him, I said, there's this program. I'd like to use it. And he said, will it make you happy? I went, yes. Yes, it will. But I had about a month of practicing by myself with the skills, with using the book, with using the podcast, with using the website. And then I joined and I signed up, and it was, I started out with, looking at his paper all the time in my posts. And I was like, wow, looking back now, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of looking at him and not focusing on my own paper. And then I had a couple private coaching sessions. And after one of those coaching sessions, I ended up going to Diamond because I wanted to go faster. I wanted to do better. I wanted to do more. I wanted more of what I was getting, and I wanted to cement it. So I'm looking at this long term now. The plan is for 6 months, but I'm looking at it like, what's the alternative? The alternative, if I don't get happy with myself, I'm going to be living a miserable life. I have accountability in a group setting with other people, and these women have become dear to me. I really appreciate their feedback. I'm their cheerleader. I am their cheerleader just as much as they're my cheerleader, and I love that. I right now, with my husband gone for the next for the 2 weeks that he's gone, I decided that with the private coaching that I had available, that I would do one session per week while he was gone, because I knew I was going to need that support. And I'm so glad I did that. I made that decision for me. And, because I realized, how do I feel? What do I want? I answered that question, and I'm so pleased. And my coach is holds witness to what I have to say. And I chose to record my sessions so I can go back and listen to my own specific advice, because the probability is pretty great I'm going to need to hear what was said to me before, because I'm still me. I'm still working on this train wreck. So yeah, it's been really good. Really good. And I just appreciate it more and more. And I've done extreme self-care. I realized that I needed to do not just one or two things or three things a day. It needs to be regular. And I'm one to jump all in. And
I can hear it on you. Everything that comes out of your mouth is like, well, that's the skills. Well, that's the skills. Well, that's the skills. So you've definitely taken them on board and really applied them so powerfully.
I have one more story with my daughter and my husband. So I want to share this because it's so amazing. My daughter learned how to ask questions and how to express desires the old way from me, and it's really annoying. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I'm like, and then she's like,
what was the old way? Yeah.
Well, just kind of, I don't like asking questions instead of stating a desire.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I hear that you want something. Let me help you express this in a different way. I gave her the pointer, say what you want and let it go. And I said, so she went to her puppy and she told him what she wanted. And his jaw dropped. And he said, okay, let's do it. And she came back to me and she was gloriously happy. And I said, way to go, girl. And we we high-fived each other, and she left the room. He came over to me, like within, the door closed, and he came over and said, "What did you tell her?" My jaw dropped. It was so different than what she had been doing before. And so, here I am. I'm coaching my daughter who doesn't like me telling her you're on your sister's page. And here she is using the skills, and she's receiving, and she received, not only she received graciously, she also invited her siblings along with her to go to the park. And so my husband saw the reflection of the skills in my daughter, and he wanted to meet her needs. He wanted to meet her wants. So that's something else. I just thought it was an amazing thing. It needed to be said.
It feels so good to be able to pass this on to your daughter, I bet.
Yes, it does.
Be amazing. So what would you tell Marie if you could go back in time and tell her what you know now?
There are these amazing skills. You've got to try them. You've got to try them. They're fabulous because they're going to change your life, and you are going to be so happy. And it just takes being more female. Embrace this, because you're embracing yourself when you do.
Beautiful. And what's your tip? Let's say for a woman who is where you were with him staying out all night, the other woman's reaching out, and she doesn't want a divorce, but she doesn't want to live like that either. What should she do?
The very first thing that she needs to do is some self-care. The very first thing. Get yourself focused on yourself immediately. Go get a manicure or pedicure. If you think that's going to help you, go buy some flowers. Go for a walk. I mean, if you need something free and cheap, and there's not funds to do it, to do anything, if you've got credit card debt up to your ears, and going on a helicopter ride isn't in the budget, then there are so many things that you can do that do not cost money. You can wash your face. You can apply a mask to your face. You can take sugar and lemon and create a scrub and clean your face. You can take a dry brush. You can take a brush and brush your body. You can massage your own hands. You can take some essential oils and smell them. Lavender smells so good. And then okay, think of a happy memory of when you were a kid, when you had no worries, or as an adult, or a favorite vacation spot, or a place you like to go, or sit in a coffee shop and order a coffee and just sit there for a little bit. Being at home with kids. When I was at home and I had my youngest, I did self-care that I didn't know was self-care at the time, but looking back, it was great. I would take my daughter on walks. We would walk to the park. We would walk back home. And we did this maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And it got me out of the house. I wasn't spending gas money because, gas prices right now. Holy cow. And there's so many things that we can do that don't cost money. And I do a lot of things every day that don't cost money. I will listen to a podcast. That doesn't cost money. I will watch a TV show or watch a video that I want to watch. I will connect with a friend. It doesn't cost anything to connect with a friend. And so I will do those things. And so those are the things I would recommend even to start with. There are websites dedicated. Just look up free things to do for self-care. I did that. I logged on. I looked at, because I wanted other people's ideas.
Yeah.
And I did that, sitting in front of a fireplace, going outside and lighting making a small bonfire, turning on music, putting on, making a playlist on YouTube, and putting all my favorite high energy songs, because I'm a high energy person.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not sorry. But, having a list of all these songs that really floats my boat and makes me move and makes me feel good. Those are the things that pull a person out of that needless emotional turmoil. So I'm going to tell a woman who is in my shoes, you got to start focusing on yourself first and foremost. And then start looking at, what are you bringing to other people? How do you want to be? And words will pop into my head, just words, not whole phrases, just words. Like, how do you want to be? Dignified. How do you want to show up? And then think about these things. Who do you want to be? And as you create your persona, who you want to be, you're going to eventually fill those shoes because that's what you really want.
I love it. And finally, last question. What is your vision going forward for your family? What are your intentions? What are you creating?
Okay. So my uh, creation is a very happy family that can show and express love and gratitude. That my kids know that I love them, that my husband knows that I love him. Uh, I can only say what's on my paper because I can't say, well, I want him to do that because my mind can still go there. That's not, just because, I'm practicing these skills doesn't mean I can't go the other direction to old habits. But for me, it's going to be so important to see my own self-worth and pass that on to my girls and my son so that he looks for somebody who can practice this kind of skills too. That he doesn't look for, because we tend to follow patterns. So my goal and desire is to change the patterns in our family household and to change that dynamic. And I'm doing that now. I am reaching that goal now. And every choice that I make either brings me closer to that goal or moves me away from it. I'm not gonna be down on myself for the times that move away from my goal because I can use an apology and I can say, I know what happened. I apologize for my behavior. I'm sorry. And I will use that with my son. I will tell my son, I am sorry I disrespected you for fill in whatever blank. And I do it with my daughters too. And it helps immensely. And we're creating that family. And I listen to my kids more now. I don't try to shut them down when they have something that they want to say that, is contrary or contradictory. They're telling me a heart message, for goodness sakes. I need to hear that heart message so that they know that they're being heard and loved. I think we're already getting there. I think we're working toward that goal. So,
well, congratulations. It sounds like you've come a long way towards that goal. I love your beautiful vision for your family
Thank you.
And all the work that you've done to make that possible. It's very clear you've been an amazing student of the skills, and I admire that very much. So this has been inspiring and illuminating, and I just really enjoyed hearing your whole story. So thank you for all the inspiration you brought today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be able to share it.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's driving me berserk this week is from a student who writes, I thought this might qualify as worst relationship advice status. Saw it on Pinterest. Quote, if you avoid the conflict to keep the peace, you start a war within yourself. And she writes, dumb. Thank you for all you do. Oh, well, thank you. And I love that you sent this to me because you're absolutely right that this is a standout as far as bad relationship advice goes. It's such a loser that it's the biggest winner of the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award. So yay! And thanks for the love and the contribution to this podcast and for sending me something that really burns me up because I love that. So if you avoid the conflict to keep the peace, then first of all, you have the peace Though that's no small accomplishment, right? That's a worthy goal to have shalom bayis, as my Jewish friends say, which translates to peace in the home. It's something that I strive to have in my home. And I know it requires maturity and self-control to keep my thoughts to myself sometimes and maybe look at my mood, maybe go find some frivolous fun instead of saying something critical. So there's something to be said for being soft and being thoughtful about how I show up in my relationship, that this quote seems to run over with the car. But you could argue that they mean, well, if something's really bugging you, you have to speak up for yourself. So the subtext that I hear in this quote, and maybe I'm reading into it because I do make things up sometimes, so you have to keep an eye on me. But what I hear is, you have to complain if you don't like something. If you keep silent and you don't complain or criticize, you'll just suffer with that thing you don't like forever. And let's not forget, ever. So you have to speak up in a critical way if the other person isn't meeting your expectations, even if it causes World War III, because at least that way there's a chance things will improve. Otherwise, there's no chance and you'll be mad at yourself. That's what they're saying here. And that goes along with what I learned growing up about how to navigate relationships and also get your needs met. Trouble is, it doesn't work. It doesn't inspire people to want to do better when you criticize them. Mostly just the opposite. It makes people defensive, and people aren't at their best when they're defensive. And it definitely is going to cause conflict, right? It's going to cause big conflict, like a war at your house, which is not such a great accomplishment or a great experience to have. Another problem is that the other person might not have any idea what it is that you want after you're done complaining, because complaints are not the same as expressing your desire. If I complain about having a tuna sandwich again, that's not the same as saying, I would love a burrito for lunch. No one knows what I want for lunch because I haven't said. So probably I don't know either. I haven't even asked myself. I just know I don't want what I have. And nobody can really make me happy because they don't know how. So my retort to this goofy advice, because I love to retort, would be something like, if you're not happy, express your desire in a way that inspires so your husband can make you happy, and then you won't blow up and start a war. And for that reason, the advice that if you avoid the conflict to keep the peace, you start a war within yourself is the very, very worst relationship advice I have heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share how to rebuild your marriage during a separation. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that my squirrel friend, Murgatroyd, drops by the patio every afternoon for walnuts and to chat. And I just wonder why his parents named him Murgatroyd. Awkward.